Hi everyone, Vic here from Mer Hersoner. As you all know, today is Vardanants. Vartanants, which is also known as the Feast of Saint Vartan, commemorates the Battle of Avarayr, which took place in 451 AD. The battle is a significant historical event for Armenians all around the world, which celebrates the honor and valor of Vartan Mamikonyans and his warriors, who fought against the Sassanid Persian Empire. The core reason Armenians celebrate Vardanants is not just to commemorate the battle, but also to honor the defense of their Christian faith. At the time, the Persian Empire sought to restore Zoroastrianism as the state religion of Armenia, which had adopted Christianity in 301 AD as their state religion, becoming the first nation in the world to do so. Vartan Mamikonyans led the nobility to protect their right to practice Christianity freely. Besides being outnumbered and losing the battle, their resistance led to guerrilla war tactics, which eventually allowed for Armenians to practice Christianity freely in their nation. The battle is seen as a symbol of Christian faith, illustrating their willingness and sacrifice to practice their beliefs and faith. Vardanants is not just celebrated as a historical event, but a testament to the Armenian spirit and faith, and their struggle for religious freedom. It is observed in church services, cultural events, and commemoration of this event, which reflects on the significance of this battle in Armenian history and identity. 2 years ago, we did a special episode covering the Battle of Avarayr and all the events that took place with Vartan Mamikonyans. Now, at that time, we were not on YouTube, so everything that we have was recorded on audio only. So we're going to go ahead and air that episode again. Now, you won't get to see us, but you'll get to hear the audio with some visual backgrounds. We'll be back soon with some new episodes with some new exciting historical events to cover. Now, enjoy this episode of Vartan Mamikonyans. Hello everyone and welcome to Mer Hersoner Podcast Season 2 Episode 10. I'm your host Vic and as always I'm joined by my co-host Mike Balyan, where we discuss our great Armenian history covering different people, eras, and topics. It's Thursday, March 24th, 2022. Happy Thursday to everyone. How are you, Abed?
Great. We're back to history.
Back to history. We've been busy.
Just the two of us.
I know, right? It's been a while since we've been doing it, alone. Doing it alone. That doesn't sound right. But
this is a PG-rated show.
Yeah. So, but we took last week off because we were both extremely tired. We have a lot on our plate. We're trying to meet some deadlines with everything that's going on.
Busy season.
Yeah. So we have some exciting stuff coming up for you guys. We'll be posting them soon, but we're not going to give anything away right now. Let's see. Our topic today is going to be the Vardanants War. This is going to be, it's very exciting what we found, the research, and Gevorg, again, obviously he helped us with it. So I think you guys are going to enjoy this. But before, we dive into the topic, I want to mention about the sculptures.
Yes.
Tigran is shipping. We have stock now. Everybody who had pre-ordered, it is shipping. The marble version. The people who had ordered and received the first version, those are coming, guys. They're on their way, so you'll get it in the mail soon. I want to mention Patreon. Those of you who we just had a new Patreon sign up, Ellen Mugar. Thank you so much for becoming a patron. We appreciate that. And to everybody out there, we have over 10,000 listeners. Guys, support the show. Go to patreon.com/Mer Hersoner. Sign up. It's $5 a month.
to be a soldier with us. It helps. So please.
We're not just doing this for us. We're doing it for all of you guys.
Yeah. Another thing I want to mention to all of our listeners, when we do our lives, we're usually live on YouTube. Obviously, we're live on Facebook too. But go to YouTube, search for Mer Hersoner podcast, and subscribe. We want to get our subscription up at least over 1,000, and you'll get notified. Make sure you hit that ring notification, so every time we go live, you'll get notified. You'll join us. You can interact with the guests, ask questions. So please, to all our listeners, go to YouTube, search for us, and subscribe to our channel. I want to mention that April 7th, we'll be live with Haraç Kozibeokyan, and that will be from the Eskidjan Museum, and that will be 7:30 p.m. sharp, and we'll be covering, we'll be continuing our conversation about the rugs. And we'll be covering 18th, 19th century, and then 20th century, and we'll be covering the orphan rugs as well. So that's going to be an interesting conversation. I think it's going to be a long conversation.
Yeah, a very long one.
Yeah. So that's pretty much it as far as the announcements. So again, our main topic today is the Vardanants War. And to begin, in 428, the Armenian aristocracy, with the help of the Sasanian king, Bahram V, deposed the last Arshakuni king of the Kingdom of Greater Armenia, Artaxerxes IV. As a result, the country became a semi-autonomous Sasanian dependency with a governor known as Marsban. The royal fiefs of the Arshakunis were divided among the Armenian aristocracy. The Marsban was invested with supreme power, even imposing death sentences. But he could not interfere with the age-long privileges of the Armenian Nakharars. Armenia, as a whole, enjoyed considerable autonomy. The office of Hazarapet, corresponding to that of the Minister of the Interior, Public Works and Finance, and Sparapet, was entrusted to the Armenian Nakharars. Each Nakharar had his own army according to the extent of his domain. That's crazy.
Yeah, what episode was it when we discussed they were having internal issues with having the Nakharars or the Marspans or the governors elected or appointed?
Well, we covered that through
They were. I think it was also the Persians, where forgot which episode it was, where the Persians had a conflict of interest because they wanted to appoint their hand-picked,
of course,
non-Armenian,
yeah,
Marspan or whatever,
yeah,
right,
or king or whatever, whoever's going to lead at that time.
I forgot which one it was, but it rung a bell there.
The difference with this situation is that the Nakharars actually got to have their own provinces and actually had their own army. Just like, imagine like a little city that gets to have their own police department, fire department. You know? So we've never seen that before.
No, we hadn't.
So
the provinces that you're talking about, known in Armenian as Ashkhars, were headed by the Nakharars, while the counties known in Armenian were known as Gavars, were headed by the Sebus, which were made up of the junior branches of the Armenian aristocracy. It's interesting to note that the modern Armenian word for property, sepakanutun, comes from the archaic form sebhakanutun, which meant the property of Sebus.
Yeah.
Right? Interesting. The Ayrutsi, or the Armenian Royal Cavalry, was under the direct command of the Sparapet. Tax collection during the Marspanate period was also conducted by the Nakharars. The courts of justice and the schools were directed by the Armenian clergy. Oftentimes, the post of the Marspan was held by an Armenian or sometimes by a Persian. See what I mean?
Yeah.
Interesting. I don't know. That would have probably caused some conflict of interest, right?
Well, obviously,
If during this period, if it was a Persian, right? It's like, hey, what are you doing?
Well, I mean, it's natural, right? I mean, it's a foreigner is handling a situation that you would prefer for your own, people or your own Nakharars.
Yeah, basically.
So,
the seat of the Marspan until the mid 5th century was at the ancient Armenian capital of Artashat. After that, it was moved to the city of Devin.
Yeah. Now, in 441, the new Marspan of Armenia became Vasak Syuni, who hailed from the powerful Armenian noble house of Syuni of the province of Syunik. We all know province of Syunik, such an important part of our, especially now, southern part of Armenia. The Syunis, according to the Zoranamak, the royal register of the Armenian army, provided the largest mounted cavalry force to the national army, with nearly 20,000 heavily armored cavaliers, also known as cataphracts. Earlier, in 440, Vasak Syuni became the governor of Iberia, modern-day Georgia, and we've talked about this before. And in the 420s, Mesrop Mashtots was active in establishing new learning centers throughout Syunik. During this period, the Sparapet of Armenia until his death on the battlefield of Avarayr in 451, which we'll get into later on, was Vartan Mamikonyan. He was a member of the Mamikonyan aristocracy house, which was prominent family of Armenians' higher aristocracy, also known as the Nakharars. The Mamikonyan family from the 4th century to the 7th century held a hereditary position of the Sparapets, or the supreme military commanders of the Armenian army. The Mamikonyans ruled the Armenian regions of Taik, Tarun, Sasun, Bagravand, and others. Their patron saint was Saint John the Baptist, whose monastery of the same name, also known as Glock, they fiercely defended against the Sasanian invaders.
Yeah, we're starting to get the painted picture of how powerful the Mamikonyan family is.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, we'll get into a little bit, but they go way back.
We've touched on it in previous episodes,
and it's funny. Every episode we've covered, their name comes up. I mean, you go way back.
Well, they, from the sound of it, and I don't want to give anything away. I know you and I have discussed this at further length.
Yeah,
many centuries, this family was a notable What's the word I'm looking for? Notorious family
that people looked up to.
Absolutely, and had quite a bit of power.
Yeah.
Speaking of the Mamikonyan noble family, in the early 4th century, during the late Arshakuni kingdom of Greater Armenia, they occupied an important position. They were hereditary supreme military commanders, or Sparapets, and royal tutors, Dayeks, controlling large domains, including most of the provinces of Tarun and Taik, like you mentioned. The Mamikonyans increased their property further with the death of the last hereditary patriarch of Armenia, Sahak, around 428 AD, when they inherited many lands of the Armenian Apostolic Church through the marriage of Sahak's only daughter, Sahak Anush, to Hamazas Mamikonyan.
Yeah. So in essence, again, we go back to the whole marriage situation,
interlinking
families, and through that gaining land.
Of course.
It's a strategy in a way, it's like, and we'll find out in these marriages, some of these marriages later on, these kids were very young.
Well, yeah, look, you're talking.
I'm talking about
like it's not like now. You're talking about.
No, I'm talking about like
1700,
like 6, 7 years old,
1600 years ago.
Yeah.
At this point, like you don't think they had some sort of royal decree or something like this, like a will of some sort that like these kids were being written into. Hey, when I die, someone kills me, my land goes to this person.
Yeah.
We've talked about all the treachery in these times.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, right. The first known Mamikonyan lord, or Nakharar, who headed the noble house known as Tanuter, recorded in medieval Armenian chronicles, is Vache Mamikonyan, who flourished around the years 3030 to 3039 AD.
Yeah.
The family appears in ancient Armenian chronicles in 355. At that point, the aristocratic house was headed by Vasak Mamikonyan, who was the Sparapet of the Kingdom of Greater Armenia. Vasak Mamikonyan was in charge of the Armenian defense against Persian Shah Shapu II, but was eventually defeated by the latter, as we've talked about this in the past too, through the treachery of Merujan Artsruni.
Yep, we've talked about this.
Yeah, we've covered this. We've covered this in depth.
But again, going back, all the way to 355, that the chronicles show how far they go back as far as their family.
Yes.
So now, following the defeat of Vasak's brother Vahan Mamikonyan and multiple other feudal lords defected to the Persian side, The Emperor Valens, however, interfered in Armenian affairs and had the office of Sparapet bestowed on Vasak's son, Mushech I Mamikonyan in 370. 4 years later, Varasdatis, or Varasdat, the new king of Greater Armenia, confirmed Mushech in office. The latter was subsequently assassinated at the behest of the Sambat Saharuni, who replaced him as the new Sparapet of Armenia. Again, we're going back to...
Yeah, you're posturing,
Yeah.
chess playing.
Of course.
Yep.
On this event, the family leadership passed to Mushech's brother, Manvel Mamikonyan, who had been formerly kept as a hostage in Persia. Man, I mean, how many times have we gone through
exchange
this
program.
exchange program? It's like, what the hell was going on back then?
I mean,
Yeah.
look, it seems like it was a common practice back then.
Tell me about it.
You can't argue against it. It's a tactical move.
Of course. The Mamikonyans at once broke into insurrection and routed Varasdat and Saharuni at the city of Karin. Manvel, together with his sons Hamyak and Arches, took the king prisoner and put him in a fortress when Varasdat escaped abroad.
Yeah, the drama begins.
Of course. Dun dun dun.
Exactly. Zarmantucht, who also we have mentioned in the past, the widow of Varasdat's predecessor, was then proclaimed as the queen of Armenia. Manvel came to an agreement with the Sasanians, pledging his loyalty to make amends for their respect of Armenian sovereignty and laws. Upon the queen's fall in 384 AD, Manvel Mamikonyan was proclaimed as the regent of Greater Armenia, pending the minority of her son Arshak III, and had the infant king married to his daughter Vartantucht.
Again, there you go. Infant king.
Yeah.
But going back
It's like
to...
you're setting up your house of cards.
Yeah, but going back to, and we've talked about queens before, was she a sole queen?
No.
Like a sole ruler. That's what I'm saying.
Sole
That's
ruler
one thing
because
we didn't-
they were under more or less like the rule of the Persians right now.
I know, but
Yeah.
they still announced her as a queen. But I'm saying, was she
Sure.
a queen by herself, or did she have a husband? That's my question. That's where I couldn't,
Yeah. Yeah.
There wasn't enough information
I was
on that.
wondering the same thing when I was looking into this.
It's very general. Like, it doesn't
Yes.
get into it.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll find out more information later.
It was Manvel's death in 385 that precipitated the country's invasion of the Persians in 386 to 387 AD. Hamazas Mamikonyan was recorded as the family leader in 393. His wife is known to have been Sahak Anush, daughter of the patriarch Sahak the Great, as we mentioned earlier. She was a descendant of the Arshakuni kings and Saint Gregory the Illuminator.
Yeah.
In 388, they had a son, Vartan Mamikonyan, who in 451 AD led the Armenian forces during the Battle of Avarayr and fell as a hero on the battlefield.
Yeah, and we'll get into a little bit
Yeah.
more detail
Yeah.
about that battle. But now, the events surrounding the life of Vartan Mamikonyan, including the Vartanants War of 450 to 451, was chronicled by two 5th century Armenian historians, Yerishe and Ghazar Barpetsi. In 420, Vartan Mamikonyan became the military governor of the western portion of Armenia that was under Byzantine rule. In 422, Vartan Mamikonyan became the Sparapet of the Kingdom of Greater Armenia. In 432, after the fall of the Kingdom of Greater Armenia, Vartan Mamikonyan was reconfirmed as the Sparapet of Armenia by Persian Shah Bahram V.
So he was, at this point, he was like, Vartan was born in 387. So
Yeah.
he was, at this point, mid-30s?
Yeah. Now, I mean, if you're talking about 422, he became the military governor,
Uh-huh.
and then 420, I'm sorry, and in 422 he became the Sparapet. So within 2 years he was basically
Yeah.
promoted
Yeah.
in a way.
Changed
But
his rank.
then in 432, you're talking about a 10-year span.
Yeah, but I mean, his appointment to some sort of significant leadership with the military or whatnot in Greater Armenia, 33.
Yeah,
33 years old.
Yeah, it's fairly young.
It's a heck of a responsibility,
It is,
right?
for sure. Now, in 442, now we're jumping again another 10 years, Vartan Mamikonyan, at the behest of the Persian Shah, Yazdegerd II, led the Armenian cavalry in a number of successful campaigns against the Kushans. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
the Kushans of Central Asia. In 447, the Persian Shah, in order to replenish his treasury after costly wars against the Kushans and others, decided to raise taxes in Armenia and throughout other parts of the empire, and which was a bad move in my opinion. But, you're talking about for 10 years, or actually, if you look at 442 to 447, Vartan served for him and went east to basically, battle on behalf of the Persians.
Yeah.
And there was always a good relationship, I think, from everything we've read and learned so far, between the Mamikonyans and the Persians. There was some kind of a good relationship with them.
More or less. But
those relationships can...
when it comes to religion,
can go sour really fast.
Of course. Absolutely. Yazdegerd's Persian quartermaster Denshapu, prior to taxation, was taxed with carrying out a census throughout Armenia. Interesting, they had a census.
Yeah.
Denshapu also tried to establish a number of Zoroastrian fire temples throughout Armenia, which was greatly resented by the Armenian clergy.
I mean, that's...
There you go. You see the implementation
this is
their...
Right? I mean, this is how many years after, Christianity was accepted, and now you're doing... It's disrespectful, in my opinion.
Of course. You give them autonomy.
Yeah.
And then you slowly creep in with your ideologies.
Yeah.
Right? It's ancient practices, right? Like you still see it today.
Yep.
Right? Not trying to get into politics, but hey.
For some reason, we can't get away from trying not to get into politics.
No one can get away with politics. We're from politics.
We always say that. We're trying
suppressing politics
so hard.
And geopolitics. It's difficult. Right. It really is.
Moving on.
Yes. Denshapu also removed Vahan Amatuni as the Hazarapet of Armenia and instead appointed one of his Persian subordinates. Here we go again. In 449, Yazdegerd II called upon Armenians to renounce their Christian faith and embrace Zoroastrianism.
Yeah, bad move, buddy.
I know. The Armenian lords and church leaders hastily assembled in Artashat and decided to reject the Shah's call to abandon their faith.
Of course. I mean, who wouldn't?
You have big problem.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Yazdegerd...
Continue. That's fine now.
Yazdegerd II had a big concern. The Armenian Apostolic Church was hierarchically dependent on the Latin and Greek-speaking Christian church, which was aligned with Rome and Constantinople, rather than the Aramaic-speaking and Persian-backed Church of the East. The Persians tried to compel the Armenian Apostolic Church to abandon Rome and Byzantium in favor of the Church of the East, or simply, I must stress that word, simply convert to Zoroastrianism.
Yeah. Now, I want to mention something. When they're talking about Persian-backed Church of the East, I thought that when they say East, are they talking about East as far in Eastern Armenia, that there was a Persian rule over the churches there? Or was there churches in Persia
there might have been. I mean, look, the Persians were Zoroastrians, right?
Yeah.
They weren't
no, I understand
Christian, right?
that.
Now, what I'm wondering is, it's a valid point you're bringing up. What I'm wondering is, based off of what you're bringing up, was there maybe some sort of different sect or something like this on a certain portion of Armenia's east, or the Albanian east or north?
Yeah.
Right? Was there something different about it? I don't know.
But that's what I'm saying. When it mentions the Persian-backed or Aramaic-speaking, I'm trying to understand, was it like in the Persian side, or was it just the eastern side of Armenia that was controlled by them? I thought you knew this.
Well, God,
you're not a scholar.
Okay, I'm not a scholar, but
I quit.
But now you're going to make me want to look into this, because this is a really interesting situation.
No, when we were reading it, I thought about it.
Can we phone a friend?
Yeah, I think he's sleeping right now. So, but all right, let's continue. So, where were we?
More on Yazdegerd II. He summoned the leading Armenian nobles, including Vasaksuni at Ctesiphon, in what is today Iraq, and pressured Armenian nobles into cutting their ties with the Orthodox Church as he had intended. Yazdager's concern was not religious, but was more about securing political loyalty.
Yeah, but he was using religion to do that, which was disrespecting the Christian faith that was already taken over in Armenia.
Have we not encountered this many times in our past adventures?
I know, but that's just a bad move.
Constantine.
Yeah. Now, in April of 450, after learning of the rejection by the Council of Artashad of his call for Armenians to convert to Zoroastrianism, Yazdagert summoned the Armenian nobles Vartan Mamikonyan, Vasaksuni, Vahan Amatuni, the Viceroy of Gugark, Ashusha, and others, a total of 11 leading Armenian noblemen, along with nobles of Iberia and Albania, to his capital city of Ctesiphon. The Shah demanded that the nobles renounce their faith and convert to Zoroastrianism. However, Yezdegerd's policy provoked, rather than forestalled, a rebellion in Armenia.
He pissed somebody off.
Pissed a lot of people off.
Oh, yeah, he did.
When news about the compulsion of the nobles to convert reached Armenia, the mass revolt broke out. On their return that same year, the nobility, led by Vartan Mamikonyan, joined the rebels. That same year, a subsequent meeting of Armenian leaders was held in Devin, which decided to resist the force of the Yazdagert, and Vartan Mamikonyan was appointed as the military leader of the uprising. So, I mean, you can't blame them. The fact that first, obviously, travel took a while. You're talking about a year of them getting back.
Yeah.
But the news had reached. I'm sure they had messengers that got the news out there. But the fact that Vartan got back and right away, without question, joined the uprising. Because obviously he was offended by it as well.
Of course.
And I can't imagine what his feeling was, being served for the Persians and being backstabbed this way, because faith was so important to them.
Well, obviously he saw something that was unfair.
Of course, it was unfair.
Which is what we were saying earlier.
Yeah.
You usher in. I mean, look, it's not mentioned here, but one can only imagine in a logical sense. You've been taken over by somebody. You've been given autonomy.
Yeah.
And then eventually they start slowly pushing you back into a corner of you must be Zoroastrian or whatever the case is.
Yeah.
Fire worship, blah, blah, blah. At some point, it's going to take something very small to set off an eruption.
Of course.
Because it's something that's been building and building. And, hey, what have you guys been doing for this long?
Yeah, they keep pushing and pushing and pushing.
Year after year after year. I'm sure. I mean, all the details are not mentioned in here, but there have been implementations of things where at some point the bottleneck's about to blow.
Yeah.
Right?
Of course, yeah.
Now, Vasaksuni argued that an Armenian uprising without Byzantine support would not be wise. Smart man. But he was not generally against the uprising. Only after adequate preparations were made, a number of Armenian lords, including Tirots Bakraduni, Artak Rishtuni, Gadisho Khorkhoruni, Gyut Vahevuni, Menech Apahuni, Arten Gabekyan, Enjuch Avakia, Nerse of Urts, Varashapu Paluni, and Manen Amatuni were a part of one faction.
I can't believe you just went through that.
I can't believe I just went through that. Is everybody okay? Is everybody all right?
Yeah.
All right,
Good job. I'm proud of you, man.
Good.
I couldn't do it.
So that's one faction.
Yeah.
Right? They believed that we need backup. And we need proper preparations.
Yeah. So I'm going to say a little prayer for you because you have another one coming up. So good luck, my friend.
It's a little bit longer than this
Ladies and gentlemen, Mike Balyan.
All right, here we go. This faction, headed by Vasak, was opposed by a faction that argued for an immediate uprising, which we know was Vartan's thing, without preparation time, as suggested by Vasak, headed by Vartan Mamikonyan, and his inner circle made up of the lords Nershahup Artsruni, Khoren Khorkhoruni, Artak Paluni, Vahan Amatuni, Gyut Vahevuni, Tatul Dimaxian, Arshavir Arsharuni, Shmavon Anzavasti, Tachat Gantuni, Atom Ganuni, Khosrov Gaberian, Karen Saharuni, Hamayak Dimaxian, Gazrik Dimaxian, Nerse Khachperuni, Parsman Mandakuni, Arsen Enzayatsi, Ayruk Sălcuni, Veren Tashrați, Abram Arțruni, Hora Servadziaț, and a number of others. Okay? Like I said, everybody, be ready for this. So from
Congratulations! I can't believe
I know. That's a lot of crazy names.
I couldn't do it.
Roll call, everybody, roll call. But anyway, so the point is that it seemed like there was a lot more lords or Nakharars that backed Vartan's
of course
immediate strike. Let's take action now, as opposed to Vasak's. Whoa, let's prepare and then attack.
I think Vasak was being more cautious in the sense of, and I kind of understand his point of view that, you know, we have time, and we're going to get into this in a bit, where he was more thinking, hey, let's gain a bigger force, because at the end of the day, you're going to be fighting about 60,000 versus about 200,000.
I mean, a giant Persian Empire.
Yeah, but here's the thing. You know, you named all these Nakharas, right? And they had their own army. So obviously, Vartan, when we're talking about 60,000 that led into the Battle of Avarayr, that 60,000 was obviously these Nakharas with their armies.
Of course.
It
I mean, you're combining factions.
Of course. Right? So what Vasak was trying to say is that, hey, maybe we can get more people trained, give time. You know, we have, and we're going to learn about this. Obviously, seasons changed. This war wasn't going to happen right away. Of course not. So... Yeah.
But you have to take that into consideration with any of the battles we talk about, because if anyone has been to Armenia or that region, seasons change.
No,
right? We've discussed it as a war tactic with some of the more ancients that use the mountains and the weather to their advantage. And we're actually going to touch on that a little bit.
Now, the strong calls for caution by Vasak and his subsequent actions were deemed as treasonous by the church clergy, as well as the contemporary chronicles, who were sympathetic to Vartan Mamikonyan. However, a number of modern Armenian historians, like Nikogaios Adons, have pointed out to the contrary, noting that Vasak Suni, just like Vartan Mamikonyan, was a staunch patriot. Vasak only had a contrary point of view and was opposed to the immediate uprising as proposed by Vartan and his supporters, which in reality was hasty and thus void of proper preparation and lack of outside assistance. There you go. You know, I mean...
Yeah, one person wasn't... Look, we mentioned that Vasak wasn't against the revolt or potential revolt, but he wanted to be a little bit more prepared and tactical about it.
But for the clergy to, you know, come out and jump the gun and call him treasonous, I don't know. That's a little bit...
Well, maybe they knew something that wasn't mentioned here. Maybe there was something about him that was just like
maybe. I mean, we don't know.
It's just an assumption, guys. Just an assumption. I'm not trying to be a historian here.
Yeah. Now, it's not a coincidence that Yazdagerd II later on imprisoned Vasak Suni for his role in the national liberation struggle, and it is in the Sasanian dungeon that Vasak Suni eventually died of his wounds as an old man. Vartan Mamikonyan sent to Constantinople for aid, as he had good personal relations with the Byzantine Emperor Theodosius II, but this assistance did not arrive in time.
Never does.
In fact, Theodosius II's successor, Emperor Marcian, in the summer of 450 informed Yazdagerd of the Armenian nobility plans. Yazdagerd II, hearing the news, gathered a massive army to attack Armenia.
What a snitch.
Talk about bad timing and just, you're talking about Theodosius being, at that time when Vartan sent the news for assistance or the message, you have this political change. Now you have this new emperor come in, Marcian, and who obviously didn't side with us.
When things like this happen, it always makes me wonder, like, what happened on that side of things. Like, I mean, it's worth looking into one day out of curiosity. I mean, I'd like to look into it. It's like, what happened with that change? What was going on in Rome? I mean, we've talked about how many times Rome has, or the Byzantine Empire, which was the Eastern Roman Empire, had internal affairs and whatever was going on. Somebody would get overthrown, killed, whatever the case is, change of leadership. And it almost seems like every time there was a change of leadership in like a certain portion, it always turned for the worse.
for us.
For us. Yeah. No, yeah.
Yeah, it's
Good,
like-
good way to finish that off.
yeah.
I mean, it's the point I
I
was
mean,
trying to make.
you know,
Every single time it was like, hey, we got good guy, we need help. And then all of a sudden it's like bad guy comes in because of some sort of thing. And then bad guy's like, no, what did you tell me? Okay, let's go send 100,000 troops.
you know, we Armenians have a saying like "Աշխարհ մինչում վերջում հայի գլխին է ջարդվում." That's what it is.
So
Like,
true. So true. So, you know, speaking of Gluch Jartel,
yeah.
the Sasanian army, headed by General Sabucht, entered Armenia from neighboring Albania. Albanian and Iberian forces, at least they were with us, also joined forces with Armenians in order to repel the Sasanian forces. Vartan Mamikonyan divided his forces into 3 armies, basically spread them apart.
Yeah.
Headed by Nershapu Artsruni, which was the first army. Himself, Vartan Mamikonyan, sent second or central army. And Vasaksiuni was leading the third army.
Yeah.
The first clash took place in the summer of 450 on the banks of the Gur River, near the Armenian town of Kharag, in the province of Utik. Kharag, due to its mild climate, traditionally served as a summer residence of sorts for the Armenian royalty.
Yeah, like a
Getaway. Dacha Sandere.
That's where my resort was.
Yeah, exactly. You know, during the battle, Vartan Mamikonyan divided his forces into 3 parts, as we mentioned, himself taking the command of the center while giving the right wing of his army to his son-in-law, Arshavir Kamsarakan, and the left wing to Khoren Khokhoruni, while an auxiliary regiment was placed in the rear. During the ensuing battle, the Armenian forces of the center crushed the left wing of the opponent. Arshavir Kamsarakan and his cavalry initially got stuck in a boggy marsh or something like that. His deputy, Mush Dimaxian, was killed. But Arshavir was able to crawl out of the marsh on foot and led the right wing of the Armenian army to encircle the enemy forces, most of whom were killed on the battlefield or cut down by the Armenian archers. We've always had bomb-ass archers.
Yeah.
While crossing the Gur River during their hasty retreat.
Yeah. If you watch any type of historical documentaries or even a lot of current shows right now, especially with the Vikings and things like that, a lot of this tactic was used to basically try to in some way encircle the enemy force.
Oh yeah, I mean,
and then just crush him.
Of course,
you know. So
if you've got the manpower, right?
Yeah.
If you manage to get behind them, you know, it's just like chess.
Yeah,
you get behind your opponent.
It's very interesting.
Yes.
Again, someone make a movie about this. I mean, I just see it. I'm envisioning everything that's happening, you know. So now the Armenian army entered a secured Albania, reaching all the way until the strategic outpost of Chorapahak, today known as Derbent, which is on the Caspian Sea, which connected the Caucasus Mountains with the Eurasian steppe. The local Sasanian regiment had surrendered, and the defense of the Derbent was entrusted to Lord Vahan. The Armenians concluded a military alliance with the Huns, who had controlled the steppe of what is today southern Russia. So there was always
the Huns, man. That's a good
see,
alliance.
That's one thing we didn't do. But the Huns, were they of Russian?
No,
descent?
they more or less, the Huns, Hungary. That's where the terminology comes from. They more or less occupied like Eastern, what we know now is like Eastern Europe.
Yeah.
Powerful army. A long time ago, I forget the time period, but Attila the Hun was actually one of the greatest military leaders.
Wow.
Hey man, I know a little
Proud
bit
of you.
history.
Good job, man. Well, the Huns had agreed to launch a military campaign into Persia in order to relieve Armenian forces fighting in the Armenian proper. While in Derbent, Vartan Mamikonyan, through a courier, learned that Vasaksiuni had abandoned his cause and had retreated to his native Sunik.
Wah, wah, wah.
Come on, Vasak.
I know.
Not cool,
right?
buddy. Not cool.
Sounds like Mark Antony.
Oh, you still remember him? I forgot about him.
I do.
I still gotta get you that T-shirt.
Yeah. Well, what are you gonna write on the T-shirt?
Don't worry about it. It's a surprise.
Hey, I'm not gonna wear something that like This is embarrassing because
You'll like it.
no. Okay. Wait, is it going to be the singer Mark Antony? Is he holding a microphone with like ancient Roman armor?
What part of surprise do you not understand?
I'm just taking wild guesses here.
Well, it's a surprise.
Ancient armor with a microphone.
Jesus Christ. Can you read? Mike, we should continue.
Okay. Yes, we should. So, as the winter continued, 450 and 451 approached. Military campaigns came to a standstill. It was not until the spring of 451 that Yazdegerd II ordered the Sasanian army made up of 90,000 cavalry and footmen and 13 war elephants. Those war elephants, man. Headed by General Mushkhan Nisalavurt to invade Armenia. The Sasanian army entered Armenia from the southeast. Vartan Mamikonyan assembled a force of 66,000. The supreme military commander once again divided his army into three parts. The right wing of the army was entrusted to Khoren Khorkhoruni with his deputies Tatu Levanand and Nerse Kachperuni. The center of the army was entrusted to Nershapu Artruni with his deputies Arshavir Kamsarakan and Artak of Mok, while the left wing of the Armenian army was headed by Vartan Mamikonyan himself, with his deputy Papak Aravekyan. Interesting, he switched to the left instead of center.
Yeah.
He's playing left wing now.
Feels comfortable from the left.
Hey, maybe had a good shot. The command of the rear detachment was entrusted to Vartan's brother, Hamazas Mamikonyan. It's interesting how he's always using that splitting the army into three parts.
Yeah. It's that
Right.
strategy that I was talking about.
True, but in a situation like that, and this is just hearsay, it's just thought invoking. Like if you're splitting it into three parts, were you splitting it because you knew how the Persian or the Sasanian army functioned, right? Because there was that familiarity.
Well,
Right?
again, at this part, I mean, again, we're assuming.
Yeah, it's just a conversation.
But think about it. He used to fight for the,
and that's what I'm saying. His familiarity.
So
with,
he kind of knew something, and if you see this, he's doing it again. So it's something in the sorts of, okay, you have your center, you have your left and your right, and I'm assuming almost like the left and the right would go a little bit wider, if you can picture what I'm saying.
Split them up.
Split them up.
Yeah.
And then you have the center going in, so now you have the
fracturing.
the Sasanians coming in, and then from the left and the right you come and almost encircle them. Like I said, everything in history warfare that I've seen so far, when you go back that far, it seems to be that same strategy, and most of the time, the ones in the left and the right were almost
flanks.
Well, they were hidden in some type of forest that you couldn't see. It was a surprise attack that, you had this. Okay, well, imagine they had 90,000 forces coming, right? So if you're talking about 60,000, let's split them evenly. 20,000 to the right, 20,000 to the left, and then 20,000 in the middle. Okay, so you have 90,000 coming at 20,000, right? And obviously that 90,000 all of a sudden has this, all of a sudden the morale is like, 20,000, we're going to go through them.
Well, also...
So they're coming at it. They're coming at it, and then all of a sudden, the minute they get to that middle part where the battle starts, you have another 20,000 from each side attacking, so crushing them.
Of course. Also, look, it's not to take away from the Persians being familiar with the terrain, right? Because it's obviously, if anyone knows their geography, there's a lot of mountainous terrain in western Iran, or Persia back then.
Yeah.
They were obviously familiar with the terrain. So I'm just curious, what would it be? I mean, obviously we don't have the answers, but it would be really interesting to see what the tactic was, what kind of things they deployed besides the attacking from the left and the right. Like, were they using the terrain to their advantage, right? Yeah. Was it like some sort of guerrilla warfare? Was it some sort of, were they using, well, the weather obviously was, we said the spring.
We're going to talk about that.
Yeah. But it was the spring of 451. So the weather must have been somewhat nice.
Yeah.
Right. I know we're getting a little deep with this, but just curious, like he's using the same tactic over and over again.
Well, as far as tactics, so the heavily armed and armored infantry was placed on the front line, which was followed by the light infantry. The second row was made up of Armenian militia, and the third was made up of Armenian heavy cavalry. The rear auxiliary guard made up a fourth row of Armenian army formation. The main might of the Sasanian forces was concentrated on the right wing of their formation. Prior to the battle, Vartan Mamikonyan made a speech to his troops. Let us not fear the multitude of the enemy's forces, and if the time has come, so we must give our lives in this sacred battle, let us welcome it with a strong heart, as long as we do not lose our resolve and bravery on the battlefield.
That was very Mel Gibson of you.
I was trying
Very
to
very Mel
channel
Gibson of
him.
you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. On May 25th, 451, the two opposing armies reached a field called Avarayr on the banks of the Tagmut River in the Artas County of the Vaspurakan province. The battle that had henceforth became known as the Battle of Avarayr began at dawn on Saturday, May 26th, 451. The battle began with the sides exchanging arrows and spears.
As they always do. It's interesting. They waited till Saturday. It's like everybody got off their work week.
Let me clear my schedule.
Let me clear our schedule. Shapat Ravot. Ganatsin Karivi.
Давай.
Yeah,
That's
that's it, dude.
There
it's
we
awesome.
go.
It's awesome
All right.
that it started on a Saturday morning. The Sasanian army stopped on the opposing side of the river. Vartan Mamikonyan crossed the river and attacked the Sasanian formations. The Sparapet was able to break the ranks of the central and left flanks of Mushkhan's army as the latter's forces started to retreat. Elements of the Armenian rear detachments attacked the center of the Sasanian formation, while another portion assisted Vartan Mamikonyan on his right flank. However, the Sasanians were able to bring in fresh detachments which surrounded Vartan Mamikonyan. The Armenian Sparapet, wearing his red signature cape, was immediately noticed by the opponents, and you're going to stand out in a crowd, and was killed during the ensuing hand-to-hand combat with the overwhelming numbers of his foes.
Yeah, he was overpowered.
It's a good way to go out.
Or not to go out would be a better way.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, it would be interesting to see if everybody was dressed differently.
Yeah.
And then, you know, he happened to be wearing his signature red cape.
Yeah. The battle ensued until late night. However, the death of the supreme commander played a negative effect on the Armenian morale, and Armenian forces began to gradually retreat towards the nearby hills. According to Ghazar Parpetsi, in all, the Armenian side during the battle lost 1,036 warriors, while the Sasanian casualties were much higher at 3,544 killed. Along with Vartan Mamikonyan, the Armenian side lost on the battlefield 8 high-ranking Nakharars. Yerishe wrote about the results of the battle. Neither side scored a victory or was defeated. Only the brave faced each other from both sides, and thus both sides were at a loss. The Armenian Church canonized Vartan Mamikonyan as a saint and instituted the Feast of Saint Vartan and his comrades, which is marked in February of each year and is considered one of the most important holy days in Armenia. And we just celebrated Vartanants in February.
Yeah, we did.
We mentioned that. So,
in order to appease the Armenian forces, which still continue to resist, good for them, the Persian Hazarapet, or prime minister, Mir Nerse, recalled Mushkan Nisalavurt to Persia and at the same time removed Vasak Suni as the Marspan of Armenia. Instead of appointing a representative of the old royal Arshakuni dynasty, Artromizd Arshakuni, this, however, did not end the Armenian resistance, which continued to be led by Hamayak Mamikonyan. More Mamikonyans to the rescue. The remnants of the Sparapet's forces withdrew to the forests and mountains of the Armenian provinces of Taik, Artsakh, Tamorik, and from there, they began to launch guerrilla warfare against the Sasanians.
that answers your
Yes.
what you were talking
There
about
it
earlier.
is. Yeah, there it is. Use the land to your advantage. The Parkhar Mountains in the Taik province became an important stronghold of the Armenian insurgency. However, a surprise attack on the Armenian stronghold of Vorzhenhakh resulted in the slaying of Hamayak Mamikonyan and a number of Armenian lords. Going to be casualties everywhere.
Yeah. I mean, you know, the enemy's always planning as well, so it's not just you. So Yarzagert II imprisoned Vasak Suni as one of the key instigators of the uprising, and Vasak subsequently died as an old man in the Sasanian dungeon. Yazdaget also imprisoned those members of the Armenian clergy that he regarded were behind the insurgency. This included church leaders such as Hovsev Vayorzotsi, Gevont Yerets, Samvel, Sahak, Rushtuni, and others. 31 Armenian Nakharas, along with 8 high-ranking leaders, were arrested and taken to Ctesiphon, where Yazdaget II staged their trial. The Shah sentenced the Nakharas and clergy to death. However, he only executed 6 Armenian church leaders, while the other 2 were exiled to Mesopotamia. The Armenian Nakharas were eventually freed in 463 to 464 when the new Sasanian Shah, Peros I, pardoned them and sent them back to Armenia.
See, there it is again. Change of leadership.
Yeah.
Bad guy, nice guy. Nice guy, bad guy.
Yeah. So it's so interesting how this dynamic works.
I know.
After that, by no means the Armenian resistance was broken. The Armenian national liberation struggle continued in the decades following the battle, led by Vartan's successor and nephew, Vahan Mamikonyan.
Yeah.
The Mamikonyans just didn't give up, man. They just kept fighting. They just
like,
kept
all right,
fighting.
well, we don't die, we multiply.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, we're going to be talking about the continuation of all this, the Vardanants War, and the important Treaty of Navarsak of 484, which guaranteed religious freedom to Armenia and the Armenian people in our next episode.
Yeah. Next episode, as far as you and I.
Yes. Just the two of us.
Yeah, baby. Sing it.
I had to do it again.
Which would be next week. So
yes,
we're fine.
Yes,
yeah.
it will.
Yeah, we have a lot of lives coming up, so we're always trying to figure out our schedules.
This was nice. I'm not gonna lie. We've had a lot of live guests, as you guys know. But me and Vic always enjoy talking history like this,
reading and talking, and discussing and learning at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot more in-depth information with a lot of amazing time periods.
Yeah. So we hope you guys learned something from this. I'm sure we did. So that was interesting, man. I mean, it's something that
it described the battle a little bit more in depth than what we're used to learning in schools, at least for myself. I know I've mentioned it a bunch of times.
Yeah.
It's not as in depth as what we talked about. It's always good to know a little bit more about it. But, hopefully this story or the intricacies of this story or whatever we described kind of sparks. I know it does with me. I'm sure it does with you.
Yeah.
Sparks some people to kind of go look into this a little bit more, because there's a lot of names in here that obviously had a lot of prominence.
Yeah. With the Mamikonyans. I mean, I would love to learn so much more, prior to Vartan Mamikonyan, with all the other Mamikonyans and post, Vartan, which obviously next episode we're going to talk about that. But everyone, thank you for listening. We hopefully you learned something with us as we did as well. Hope you.
Thank you for spending some time with us.
Yeah, and hopefully you like our little jokes that we crack here and there. So that's it for this episode. Again, I want to mention our next live on YouTube will be April 7th, 7:30 p.m. Pacific Coast Standard Time, and we'll be live with Harac Kozibeokyan from the Eskijian Museum Center. So, I want to mention we haven't kind of set a date, but definitely next month, Arapapyan is going to join us.
Yeah.
We have a couple of other guests as well. We don't want to mention right now because we haven't officially set a date because, everybody's busy. We're busy. But we're trying our best to get these intellectual, prominent people on the podcast. So we appreciate you guys sticking with us, listening to our podcast. Another thing I want to mention, those of you, I don't know which platform you listen to us, but please go give us a 5-star review. Say something, say hello. And to everybody who's reaching out to us and texting us through Instagram and Facebook, thank you so much. We love our conversations with you guys.
Really.
We respond. So those of you who might be hesitant, you want to say something, maybe you don't agree with something, or you agree, or you want to say whatever it is, go ahead and send us a message.
We don't have our messages rerouted to anywhere in Southeast Asia. We promise. It's either me or Vic that answer.
Yeah, it's us. It's not in the Philippines.
It's the both of us.
Yeah. So again, any other mentions?
No, prepare yourselves for a lot of really cool artwork that we've been working on.
Yeah. Follow us on Instagram.
A lot. Like it's what we've been busy. We don't want to just drop one thing and then move along.
Yeah. And, since we were talking about Vartan Mamikonyan, I got to plug it again. Guys, go order your Vartan Mamikonyan sculpture, Tigran sculpture. These are in marble now.
Bronze or white?
The bronze is coming.
White?
The white is available. The bronze is coming.
I don't know. I'm digging those bronze.
Well,
man.
we posted the bronze.
Now I want one for myself.
Well, you'll get one. Don't worry.
Yeah.
But the bronze ones, we did a poll. People said they want it. So the bronze is in production for both of them. It's going to be only special limited for now, just 25 pieces. So if you want it, it's not up on the website yet as far as for you to order it. Once it goes up, you guys, if you want it, please pre-order it. These do take a long time. Each piece takes about 3-4 days to make. So imagine 25 of them,
And that's after the production, prepping it for production.
Prepping it. So it does take a long time. That's why these marble ones take a long time. So we usually get them in batches of 25. So if you want it, order it. And to all those people who keep saying, "Oh, I'm going to order it." Dude, come on, man. It's been what?
Get on your horse.
Yeah, seriously. You know who you are. So got to put it out there. Anyways, thank you everyone for joining us. And, as we always say, respect one another, love one another. And until the next episode, take care of yourselves.